and welcome back for another CottageCutz YouTube video tutorial. This is Marla with Mad About Cards and Crafts, and today I have a holiday card featuring one of the new dies available now from the Christmas 2 release. These dies are in the Scrap and Cottage. This is called the Holiday Door. I will be giving this die away. I'll get to more information regarding that in just a moment. I'm going to do some watercoloring today, so I have die cut my image out using watercolor paper. I'm going to add some water to this house. So this is the main frame of the house, and I'm going to add some black watercolor to the left side. This die does add some embossing to the house, so you do have the slats, if you know what hardy board is, or vinyl siding. This is what is ingrained into this paper when you do the die cutting. I wanted to go with kind of a farmhouse feel, so I'm adding that black paint, and then I'm using the water to thin it out to give it more of a gray appearance. As you can see, I add a little bit more, and then I'll add a little bit of water, and that kind of blends things out. I'm really not super precise when it comes to my watercoloring, as you're going to see right here on the door. So I'm going to use just a little bit of watercolor and some water, add it to the door, and then I'm going to be a little bit more heavy-handed with the slats on the door. I wanted to make sure, the panels, I wanted those panels to be a darker black, so they're going to be a little bit more prominent. Once I get the color laid down, I set it aside, so I'll move back over to the house and I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to blend out those lines just a little bit more, trying to get things a little bit more even, and then I'll move back to the door. So I'm letting things dry in between. I'm not using a whole lot of water. You do not want to soak your paper. This is Canson XL watercolor paper, so it's not really expensive watercolor paper, but it does take the color nicely. And it is on the thicker side, so when I start layering up this house, it's going to add some very nice dimension. While I'm doing a little bit of this watercoloring, I did want to talk about the giveaway. One of the things that's important to remember is that I do announce the winners of each giveaway in my next video. I post my videos every other Wednesday, so you can be sure that the winner for this holiday door will be announced in my next video in 2 weeks. When I make that announcement, you have 1 week to claim your prize, or until my next video, actually 2 weeks until my next video. Once my next video airs, if you haven't claimed your prize, then you have forfeited that prize. So make sure that you come back and you watch the videos. For the roof line and for the transom, I did use a heavier hand with the black paint. I did want to have that black trim. I wanted some light coming through that transom, so I took the solid piece that goes behind it and I added that yellow watercolor behind that. I'm going to start layering up my pieces, and I added a light gray touch to this background, which is where my door is going to sit. I left the columns white. I also left the porch white, and I added that pop of red for the rug. I'm going to add that pop of red to each of the bows as well. And then for the greenery, I painted some of it with just a green and lightly added it on, and for others, like the evergreen trees or the pine trees, I did add a hint of blue for that to change the tone just a little bit. In my last video, I shared a card featuring the Polar Bears with Igloo, and the winner of that is Portia Aguirre. So Portia, you do need to contact Mary Marsh. I will have her information linked in the description box below. You have 2 weeks to contact her to claim your prize. I wanted to do a little bit of hot foiling on the front of my card. I do have this hexagon from Pink Fresh Studio and my hot foil press. I did want to mention that when you use hot foil, the hot foil is a different type of foil than a laminator foil, so the deco foil. I did want to mention that. So I'm using my hot foil plate. I'm heating it up for about 30 seconds. I'll add my foil. I lost my train of thought. Pretty side down. So I want that pretty side of the foil to be facing my hot foil plate, and then I'll lay my cardstock on top of that. You'll notice that my cardstock isn't cut down to A2 size. That way I can make sure that I have good placement and I can trim around it if it isn't in the exact spot that I want it. I don't have any heat tape right now. I left my heat tape somewhere else. And so I just wanted to make sure that I had plenty of room where I was adding this on top. And you can see how beautifully it foiled. I did get a little bit of overfoiling on the bottom, but I am going to trim that off, so I'm not concerned about that overfoiling. You can also use a Tombow sand eraser, and that will remove any of that overfoiling. I want to cut out the center of this, and then I'm going to use a second die cut. So these are coordinating dies, these hexagons. I'm going to use one that's a size smaller, and I'm going to make sure that I have a nice frame behind this. And here's where I'm going to tear my cardstock right here. This tape ended up sticking a little bit more than I anticipated. I did rub it on my pants, but it was still just a little bit too sticky. Instead of refoiling this, I went ahead and stayed with it. So you can see now that I have a nice frame. I'm going to trim that red cardstock down, making sure that it's hidden behind the green cardstock. I'll glue it together, and then I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape because I do want some dimension between this. This will allow me to place my house in the valley of that hexagon. And I am going to place it on this A2 size top folding white card base. Once I get it on the white card base, I think that I don't like it. So later on off camera, I'm going to end up trimming that down and placing it on that red card panel that's to the right. And I think that it pops just a little bit more on that red. I'm going to add a little bit of tumbled glass to the background because I want to add a little bit of color. It's going to be very subtle. You're not going to see a whole lot of it. And then I'm going to start putting my house in place. So I'll start with the main frame of the house. Then I'll add my porch. I did add the stars to the plants that are going to go to the left and the right of those white columns. You could also add those stars to the pine trees if you wanted to. I did add the garland decoration to the pine trees, and I could have added the stars, but I felt like those little bushes needed a little bit of Christmas dressing up, and I thought that the stars worked well for that. Everything that I'm gluing down is going directly to my card base. I'm not adding any foam tape. I do have that little bit of dimension with the natural layering that the CottageCutz dies do have. This die is really nice for a housewarming gift. So if you had somebody that just purchased a new home, you could take the holiday elements out of this and you could build this same card, and it would be a great congratulations on your new home card. I left the sentiment off the front of this. I didn't leave a whole lot of room for a sentiment with the design that I created. So rather than trying to squeeze one onto the front of the card, I am actually going to, later on when I send it out, I'll stamp on the inside from our home to yours. So it will say like Merry Christmas from our home to yours. Something like that. I do have that type of Christmas stamp set, so I thought that that would be perfect just to stamp my sentiment on the inside of the card. Again, once I get this plant in place, I am going to off camera trim that white cardstock back. Obviously, I've glued all of my elements to it, so I can't just remove it from the panel, but it looks so much better on that red card base. Don't you agree? It gives it a stronger holiday feel. I really like the pop of color. Once I get this glued down, that will complete my card for today. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to like and leave a comment, and if you aren't a subscriber, make sure that you subscribe. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for joining me today.